skilled, caring staff. At Iowa Methodist, we treat our patients heart and soul.
This is CNN.
Live from Washington, Crossfire. On the left, Mike Kinsley. On the right, John Sununu. Tonight, reaching for the stars in the Crossfire in Los Angeles, Charlton Heston and Ron Silver, actor and president of the Creative Coalition.
Good evening. Welcome to Crossfire. Dan Quayle, a real vice president of the United States, sent Murphy Brown, a fictional TV journalist, a baby present yesterday. It was a toy elephant. Quayle says the attention his dispute with Murph is getting shows that he is winning his war with Hollywood. On last night's season opener, the fictional TV reporter, played by Candace Bergen, took repeated pot shots at the real vice president, played by Dan Quayle, who first attacked her in a speech last May.
Murph, it's Dan Quayle. Forget about it.
It seems that for him, the only acceptable definition of a family is a mother, a father, and children. And in a country where millions of children grow up in non-traditional families, that definition seems painfully unfair. Perhaps it's time for the vice president to expand his definition and recognize that whether by choice or circumstance, families come in all shapes and sizes, and ultimately, what really defines a family is commitment, caring, and love.
Quayle says, "This proves my point."
The show was critical of me. It was basically another Hollywood campaign contribution. Bill Clinton raised a lot of money in Hollywood a week or so ago. Hollywood simply does not reflect our values.
Quayle was referring to a fundraiser last week at which Barbra Streisand and other Hollywood stars raised more than $1 million for the Clinton campaign. Is Hollywood out of touch with mainstream America? Here, playing himself, as only he can, is John Sununu. John?
Ron Silver, you can't tell me you wouldn't be uncomfortable if your kids had to rely on TV programming for values and guidelines for social behavior.
No, but you know, we're very fortunate because my children don't have to rely on TV for values and family values. We have a family, and I hope most families would teach their children values in the home where it belongs.
But Ron, that's the whole point. There's a lot of kids out there who don't have you as a father, or someone like you as a father, or a family structure like yours. And the point the vice president was making is that the stronger the family structure, the better off you are.
Right, but that has nothing to do with the debate that he's brought up, which is a distraction. You know that, John, I know that, and your predecessor in your seat, Pat Buchanan, knows that too. Dan Quayle and George Bush would rather debate Murphy Brown than Bill Clinton. Murphy Brown is not going to be the president of this country. Bill Clinton is, and they would be better served, and the American people would be better served if they showed up in Lansing tonight or yesterday or the next week and debated Bill Clinton, because that's where the
end of
issues
commercial.
really lie.
Now let's get to the substance of the of
that was
the
my
discussion.
contribution to the
Yeah,
Bill
that was your
Clinton fundraising.
contribution. You've added to the contributions you've already made. But that, in fact, is what we're talking about. That it shows up in programming, it shows up in scripts, it shows up in attitude and approach, that there's a full liberal agenda that's being played out constantly on these programs.
John, you've been
as
very
you
busy
just did.
Well, wait a second. You've been very busy in New Hampshire, and you've been very busy in Washington the last several years. The American people have been lied to through TV and movies for many, many years. Hollywood has helped legitimize, mythologize, and fictionalize the American experience, and they have usually served conservative means over the years. Jimmy Stewart was not a typical congressman going to Washington. On TV in the 50s, men and women did not sleep in separate beds with one foot on the floor as they did in every TV show. The movies have constantly misrepresented reality, and I think what a lot of people like yourself and other conservatives are upset about today is now they are truthfully reflecting the diversity of this country. Mr. Heston
Based on what?
Let me make this point
the
about
agenda
movies.
of Hollywood?
Wait a second, John. Mr. Heston had a very distinguished career and still does. He starred in a movie playing Michelangelo. Now, I don't know, Chuck, you can tell me, were you gay in that movie? Because Michelangelo was a gay person. He was serving gay popes, Julius. There was a lot of gay artists in the Renaissance.
It seems a curious point to be raising in our current debate, Ron, but
Pat Buchanan raises the debate about...
As Senator Benson said, I've studied Michelangelo. I perhaps know more about his life than most people do. The least important thing in his whole life was his sexual orientation. He had no relations with either men or women except on 2 separate occasions. The only thing in the world he cared about was carving marble. That's
We're really getting far afield. We're really getting far
Chuck,
afield.
it's not far afield because Pat Buchanan has made a point using a code to bash gays. We know what the Republican code means. It has to bash
Ron,
New
are you
Yorkers.
suggesting that I shouldn't have played Michelangelo because I'm not homosexual?
Oh, of course not, Chuck.
No.
You know that.
Well,
what I'm
that's
saying
what
is that
point you're
movies for
making.
years have been lying about the reality of a situation.
No, I'm not. Let's stick to that point since you raised the point. The movie was about the painting of the Sistine ceiling, one of many projects in Michelangelo's career. We attempted to cover that point. We established his insecurity, his personal inadequacies in any kind of a social situation, his total commitment to painting the ceiling, which he hated doing, but he did it because he was ordered to do it. That's what the movie was about.
It surely is
should have
true,
established his homosexuality?
Well, I think
surely
it
is
was
true,
probably a
isn't it,
larger
Mr.
part of his
Heston?
life than you would like to admit.
That if you had tried to introduce that theme in Hollywood at that moment in history, it would have been very difficult to do it.
Right, but it was a lie because...
Well, no, Ron, I'm sorry.
Let Mr. Heston in.
You really are making a point that I think deserves some airing. To say that a movie that is about Michelangelo, that doesn't establish him as a homosexual, is an inadequate presentation, shows an ignorance of Michelangelo's life. His sexuality was of almost no importance whatever to him. Believe me, I've done the research on it.
I think we're going to defer. We're going to defer to
Chuck, I wish Pat had your same attitude toward people's sexuality.
Ron, we're going to defer to Charlton Heston's expertise on Michelangelo and move on.
Indeed. Okay.
If Hollywood, here's the problem I have. If Hollywood reflects values that are poison to mainstream America, Mr. Heston, why is mainstream America buying the hot products that Hollywood sells? Isn't Hollywood meeting the good capitalist test of the free market that you as a conservative ought to salute, unlike, for example, Dan Quayle?
Actually, network television is declining in its viewership, and that's one reason why that is supposed to be true, and I'm inclined to agree with it, is that they do not correctly reflect the agenda, the goals, the concerns, the belief of the country at large. The people that fly back and forth between the Washington, New York Beltway and Hollywood, God help us, the cultural capital of the country, call the rest of the country flyover country.
Well,
I come from the Midwest. They don't reflect the Midwest accurately. Northern exposure is nothing like Alaska. I've spent a lot of time in Alaska. The South is not populated solely by white rednecks. It's just not what
well,
the
I come from the
country is
Midwest.
like.
I come from the Midwest too, and neither you nor I now lives in the Midwest. But let me ask you what I ask. Let me ask you what. Oh, no, just a second, Ron. Let me ask you what I ask others who've made this point before. If you're a good believer in the free market, and if you believe that Hollywood is not making products that really interest people, why don't you go in there and make yourself even richer than you are by producing products that people really want to see?
I'm fortunate enough to be among those who have some control over the projects I do, and I try to do just what you've suggested.
But look, obviously there are many reasons why the mainstream networks' ratings are going down. Surely, whether or not they are reflecting values of mainstream America, they are in a desperate ratings hunger to satisfy the mainstream America. And even Murphy Brown, to take the key example, the reason she had a baby on this plot line was not to satisfy some left liberal fantasy of the writers. The reason was they thought it would be good for ratings. They thought it would appeal to mainstream America. Now, isn't that the case?
They certainly hit the nail in the head there, didn't they?
So doesn't that prove my point and not yours, that this is Hollywood seeking mainstream approval and very often getting it, not Hollywood ignoring the values of mainstream America?
They certainly seek it. I think by and large they honestly misunderstand. They think they do represent the values of the country at large.
Ron,
I don't think they do.
Let me make sure I understood what you said. You said the distortion that is now coming across the airwaves is all right because in the past it was distorted in a way that reflected a more conservative viewpoint?
No, hardly. First of all, you characterize it distortion. What I'm saying is that a lot of contemporary Tories, and yourself included perhaps, are very upset now that there is a reflection of the real world out there because you've been used to a very fictionalized world that have been basically in the conservative trust. They have mythologized and fictionalized this country to such a degree that people used to think, perhaps...
You're defining what we're watching on television as the real world? All
Well,
these
I think it's
sitcoms
more-
we're talking about is your vision of the real world?
No, I'll tell you something, though. Most of the TV, if you're familiar with it, does a great job of enforcing traditional morality. In fact, to a point that I find very unreal. Every group of people on TV is a community. It's a racially representative community. You have your Hispanic janitor. You have your African-American woman that works in the office that's your best friend. You have a wide array of people that I don't find actually reflective, but they are trying to do some sort of moralizing in what I consider to be a very good and open and expansive way. Now, you know, Chuck, this is the second time I've heard you say in 2 days, flyover country. And I find
it's a phrase that caught my attention.
I know, but you know, bashing New York and California is a very.
I don't mean that. I mean it that way. I think it's an honest misunderstanding.
But I don't think it's a misunderstanding on the part of a lot of people. New York is where this country was born. Jay and Madison wrote the Federalist Papers. They were New York lawyers, and L.A. is where our dreams have been born. And I think it's a lot of nonsense trying to go after these two areas. Most of the people who live in New York and California come from all areas of this country, and they go there because they are centers of different types of dreams that people can fulfill.
We'll give you a chance. We'll give you both a chance, Chuck.
Movies.
We'll give you both a chance to continue that when we get back, and we'll talk a little bit more about this idea of equal time.
State finals coming up. A lot of pressure to win. I don't eat right, I get irregular, so I don't project a winning attitude, and the boys see that. I tried some natural bulk fiber, but I couldn't take all that grit. Then I discovered Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. No grit in the mix, or the taste. Easy to get the extra fiber I need every day to stay regular. You got a winning attitude, you win, if you're lucky.
Metamucil, and you could stay regular for the rest of your life.
No matter what our beliefs or where we come from, chances are if we fly, we do it on an airplane made by Boeing.
It felt like the coldest day of the year. I was all alone with the kids. Then it happened. The heating went out.
Mommy, I'm cold.
I had to do something fast, and it had to be right. I called a Ream dealer. He was there in no time. He said he'd take care of the problem and went to work right away. Before long, we had heat. What could have been a very cold day in our lives was made right. Thanks to our Ream dealer.
You know it's right if it's Ream.
40 years ago, the American dream meant prosperity and opportunity. Today, most people feel that dream is slipping away. CNN presents an honest look at this country's economic future. Pillars of Our Prosperity. Sunday, 10 Eastern on CNN.
Welcome back to Crossfire. Tonight we're discussing Murphy Brown, Hollywood, and what many feel is a blatant liberal agenda playing on primetime television. Our guests are Charlton Heston, who has spent most of his adult life in and around Hollywood, and who's been a spokesman for some very non-liberal causes, including the National Rifle Association.
Anyone in this country, anyone except a police officer or a military person, to buy, to own, to have, to use a handgun. And still quoted.
And actor and activist Ron Silver, the founder and president of the very liberal Creative Coalition. Ron, the issue isn't whether you're conservative or liberal, but whether or not the airways, the public airways, are an appropriate place for an agenda to be played. And that's what the fundamental gripe today is all about.
You want me to
Ron Silver, you don't agree that it ought not to be a place where an agenda is played out?
No, of course there's an agenda played out. There's always an agenda played out, though. But I would say the agenda is very mainstream American agenda. Look, John, you know what's happening. Your predecessor in that seat laid it all out at the Republican convention for very frightening days as far as I'm concerned. Monday night was family night. Tuesday night was culture night. Thursday night was religion night. Wednesday night was another night where every speaker got up there, Pat Robertson, all these people got up and said, take back our culture, our beliefs, our this and our that. They're trying to be divisive. They're in trouble. They screwed up the economy. People don't have jobs. They have no vision thing, and they're in trouble, so they're attacking Murphy Brown. I would suggest to you that Murphy Brown is a wonderful role model. If more women in this country decided to have babies and waited till they were 40 and they got their education and they were earning a very good living, I doubt that we would have the massive problem that we have.
But you miss it, Ron. Charlton Heston, let me take up Ron's point. What bothers me, at least, about this cultural elite stuff, this Hollywood attack, maybe I'd be curious if it bothers you, is that it really does seem to be an attempt to divide Americans. There's us real Americans in the middle of the country, then there's you Hollywood people, you elite, you Harvard people, even though, of course, the president went to Yale and so on and so forth. Doesn't that bother you a bit?
I'm disturbed at the idea of being described as an elite, and I think it's an inappropriate label for filmmakers in any event. Not too many of us went to Harvard, I guess. Let me speak, since I read the material that was faxed up to me about the Murphy Brown situation, since that's supposed to be one of the focuses of this afternoon's discussion. I haven't seen the show. I know Candy Bergen to be a very good actress. I have read the plot summaries and character sketches that were faxed to me this afternoon. And I did see a flash on a news show a few days ago when they were hyping last night's program on the Murphy Brown series, in which she was speaking to her newborn baby, her newborn son, and she was saying, you know, it's going to be a different kind of a life for you. I'm not going to be there making cookies. And, you know, I thought, wait a minute, what's so tough about making cookies? My daughter made cookies when she was 8 years old. Is this that it's a bad thing to make cookies? And as I understand it, it wasn't so much that that she was having the baby out of wedlock. It's that and you'll have to correct me on this if I'm wrong, that the idea seemed to be that it was just as good to have a baby as a single mother. Not that single mothers who successfully raise children are single... Wait, please let me finish. That they shouldn't be applauded and supported wherever possible, but that was an equal alternative choice if you had a choice. Now, surely that seems to suggest that the father is not really a crucial element.
No, it seems to me...
That disturbs me. That sounds like Hillary Clinton before they toned her down.
Well, I think you're misrepresenting Hillary Clinton. You're also misrepresenting the Murphy Brown show. This was a TV show which said, if it said anything, that one of the many things that can happen to you in life is you find yourself pregnant at age 40 and you decide to have a baby. And you can even carve yourself out a nice life doing that and a good life for your child.
In fact, an equally good life is what they were trying to say, and that, I think, is the point that Mr. Heston's making. It's not an equally good choice.
Well, you may have to do it, and you may do the best you can and deserve our applause for doing that. Surely it is better to live in a nuclear family with a father and a mother.
Well, does that mean the TV show should only show nuclear families with a father and a mother and 2 kids and the mother staying at home?
I have to defer to your judgment, Michael.
Because anything else suggests that it's equally good to do something different? I don't understand that logic at all.
Michael, John, can I jump in here? I don't understand something, and perhaps, John, you're in the best position to explain contemporary Tory philosophy in this regard. As I understand it, you want government not to be intrusive.
Next time you call John a Tory, I'm going to call you a radical.
Okay, fine.
Go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. You want government not to be intrusive. You want government off people's backs, and you want just to get government out of everything. Which,
by the way, was not the definition of the Tories, but I didn't want to correct you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. But you want to get government out of everything, it seems, except people's private lives, people's bedrooms, and women's wombs.
No,
I don't quite understand that.
Well, the
it's
point
inconsistent to me.
That's what you came prepared to talk about. But the point I've been trying to make is the arrogance of a television show that is able to get away with, or thinks it's able to get away with, distorting the vice president's position and doing it by repetition, by repetition, by repetition, till the original point that I think is consistent with what Mr. Heston made about the fact that you ought not to equate that lifestyle with what is a more traditional lifestyle.
Well,
I think that's an important point.
That was certainly not my interpretation of reading of it, and I don't think it was the interpretation of reading of it of 40 million Americans.
That's right. Hold on, John. We got to take a break. Ron, Mr. Heston. When we come back, we're going to talk about this very suspicious raising of all this money by these liberals out there in Hollywood.
Hello, I'm Susan Rook. At the top of the hour, an appeals court rules on one of the nation's toughest anti-abortion laws. What's being done to help one of the unlikely victims of Hurricane Andrew, the Florida alligator? And Congress hears more testimony on whether American POWs were left behind after Vietnam. Prime News, it's right after Crossfire.
As a truck company for 90 years, we understand the value of a strong frame. A reassuring strength for towing, whether you're on road or off road. GMC Truck, the strength of experience.
Sweet dreams, baby.
Kemper, a financial services company.
Sweet dreams tonight.
Kemper, asset management, brokerage, and insurance.
Every baby needs a blanket to help them dream at night.
For growth, for protection, the companies of Kemper Corporation. We're making dreams come true.
Sweet dreams, baby.
Some 700 years ago, the English were guaranteed the right to speak freely on any subject. 500 years later, the right was extended to the colonial states. Now, MCI's contribution to free speech. Any new or existing friends and family member can have a free 10-minute call to the circle member they choose every month for an entire year. Call 1-800-756-4FREE to join friends and family. Or if you're already a member, call to tell us who you choose to speak freely with.
Doctor.
Is it right for me?
Habitrol. It's a patch.
You know the patch. Habitrol. You know, Habitrol.
It's a patch. Habitrol.
Habitrol.
Habitrol Nicotine Transdermal System. Available by prescription only.
Thank you, Doctor.
For news around the clock, turn to CNN Headline News. At the top and bottom of every hour, world news. At 15 and 45 after, business. And at 20 and 50 past, sports. Headline News. Check local cable listings for the channel number in your area.
Charlton Heston, the Republicans are trying to make it sound as if there's something fishy about the Democrats raising all this money out in Hollywood. Now, the entertainment industry happens to be one of the few places where you find a lot of rich people who are Democrats. Most rich people are Republicans, and there are a lot of industries where the Republicans, of course, raise plenty of money. Is there anything wrong with the Democrats raising money in Hollywood?
Absolutely not. No, you're quite right. There are probably more rich liberal Democrats in Hollywood than in most areas. It's a free country. Freddie Field, I guess, they reported recently, single-handedly financed the campaign to prevent the seating of Judge Bork. The party the other day raised, they said, $1 million for Governor Clinton. There's nothing wrong with that. I suppose I could paraphrase Exodus and say, these liberals are more and mightier than we. Let us take heed lest they rise against us.
Well, there is an issue there because suddenly the Republicans are warning about the dangers of big money because in this election, for the first time in many, many elections, Democrats are doing better at raising money than Republicans. But aren't they Johnny-come-latelys to that complaint?
No, I think, for one thing, the greatest contributor to the Democrats remains and has always been the AFL-CIO. Far much more in money and services than anyone else can possibly contribute to either party.
That's incorrect.
Just as important is the equal time issue. How about if the Republicans asked for equal time to respond to Murphy Brown? Would you support that in the context of fairness?
Well, you wouldn't get it.
I'm talking to Ron
Hey,
Silver.
who's going to produce it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Ron, would you support?
I would be happy if Dan Quayle would devote the rest of his career to a fictional TV character and playing it week to week and get a series commitment for 7 years. I'd be happy to see Dan Quayle do that for the next 7 years. You know, we're joking around about all of this. I feel I've been trumped with Moses quoting Exodus, and there's very little for me to do on this program now. But there is a very terrifying aspect here, and that's this whole cultural cleansing episode. And I would like to ask you, John, how you feel when Pat Buchanan says, take back our streets and our values and our beliefs. And when Pat Robertson gets up and says Eastern Europe has cleansed itself of the left-wingers and we have them in our own country, the barbarians in the Democratic Party. And when Pat Buchanan speaks at Jerry Falwell's Liberty College ad nauseum.
Let me tell you what really bothered me is a
Democratic
convention that wouldn't even let a Democratic governor from the state of Pennsylvania get up and speak. That's even more frightening.
We've been through this one before.
Do you feel that's an adequate response, John?
I certainly got to cut you off. Thanks, Ron Silver. Thank you, Charlton Heston.
Thank you very much.
So much for glamour. It's just me and Sununu in just a moment.
The copier is the heart of the business.
They come in and take care of it before it goes down.
They don't desert you once the copier is in.
Byers Laboratory agrees. The Pitney Bowes 9070 consistently displayed impressive performance. Their value-added maintenance system clearly increases uptime. To learn more, call 1-800-MR. Bowes for a copy of BLI's report or ask our customers.
Pitney Bowes made promises that were kept.
Yeah, how far away do you think I can get in 72 hours?
I wouldn't trust my car past the city limits.
For the way you travel today more than ever, the Smart Money is on budget. Reward yourself with free rentals and upgrades. Ask about the new Budget Awards Plus frequent renter program. The Smart Money is on budget.
Tonight on Sports Tonight, we'll of course be charting all of the Major League Baseball races as things get down to cases there. We'll take a look at some of the further injuries in the NFL, and we'll have a look ahead at the big tennis match between Connors and Martina. That's tonight at 11.
Here's an opportunity to receive a free copy of William F. Buckley's controversial essay, In Search of Anti-Semitism.
I want to share something with you that's very important and especially enjoyable to me. It's Bill Buckley's National Review. When you get National Review, you'll find it's informative, probing, challenging, and very entertaining. It's not on many newsstands, so this may be your only chance to get a trial subscription.
For a trial subscription to National Review, call 1-800-257-1257.
John, you know, Dan Quayle started this. He used the bully pulpit of the vice presidency to launch an attack on this television sitcom. And I don't see how you can say it's unfair or somehow he's entitled to equal time if Murphy Brown uses their power to reply to him.
I think what the issue is the arrogance of a show thinking they can distort the vice president's position and then take an hour trying to repeat over and over again the distortion of that position.
It was not a distortion.
Sure it was. The vice president was talking about the issue of not having a father in the family. Murphy Brown made it sound like he was attacking single mothers.
He
Absolutely
said
wrong.
Well, we've been through this. I don't see how you can say there's a difference between attacking single mothers and attacking not having a father. The point is,
Michael,
you guys are
if
peddling.
you don't see the difference, that's the part of the problem.
You guys are peddling backwards so fast from this stuff that Dan Quayle raised that you're going to fall over. I'm glad to
Michael,
say. From
the issue is who's distorting what goes on the public
Crossfire.
airwaves. And from the right, I'm John Sununu. Join us again tomorrow night for another edition of Crossfire.
Prime News is next, featuring David French in the role of anchor person. Let's get a look at the headlines. David?
Thanks, Michael. John, coming up, more trouble with a shuttle O-ring, but NASA hopes the problem can be fixed without delaying an upcoming launch. Feel like having a second cup of coffee? Well, go ahead. Your heart won't complain. And we'll look at one government program to help inner-city residents that really works, according to some people who have been helped. That and more next on Prime News.
Coming up, Prime News, followed by Larry King Live after a word from your local cable system here on CNN.
If you've been sitting around waiting for fall because you love Lifestride shoes, the wait is over. All the colors of fall, the styles you want, and a few surprises just right for the picking. And sizes? That's rarely a problem at Lifestride, even if you are a challenging fit. So if you've been waiting for fall, think about Lifestride shoes. You're going to fall for all we've got for you at Lifestride, exclusively at Merle Hay Mall.
Homeowners, tired of yard waste cleanup and the disposal problems caused by closing landfills? Here's great news. It's the new Troy-built Chipper Vac, a breakthrough yard cleanup machine that recycles yard debris as you walk. The powerful yard vac handles leaves and twigs easily, while this auto-feeding chipper takes branches up to 3.5 inches thick. Plus, the Troy